Welcome to Scoreography, a podcast about the greatest sport on ice, figure skating. I'm Wendy Buskey.
And I'm Adrian Buskey, and this episode's a little bit of a grab bag of a couple of different events. We're still in sort of the preseason aspect of the real Challenger Series hasn't kicked in super hard yet. The Junior Grand Prix is actually happening, and we're going to be talking about that. You guys have been asking us for more juniors coverage, which is not something that we do a lot of, but we are going to cover a bit of it here. Not super in depth, but sort of some of the top leaders, some of the highlights from the last couple of events.
And a little controversy.
Yeah, and a bit of a controversy. I think controversy is kind of
a harsh
It's a strong
term,
word for
yeah.
it. But we're going to start off with the French Masters event that just happened. There's a couple of specific highlights from this that are worth hitting, but I think the most notable aspect of this event is in the ice dance competition, because this is our first look at the new team up of Laurence, Fournier-Beaudry, and Guillaume Cizeron. As we've talked about in earlier episodes, when you talk about controversy has kind of hovered around Lolo's partner, Nikolai Sorensen, and the allegations that had been against him that caused him to be suspended. I believe that suspension has been lifted now after appeals, but I'm not entirely certain what the situation is with that. Guillaume Cizeron is, of course,
reigning Olympic champion.
Right, yeah, with his former partner, Gabby Papadakis. And they formally split a little while back, and that seemed pretty acrimonious, and that didn't sit well with a lot of people either. And these two teamed up earlier this year, and basically seemed like the French Federation just slotted them right in as the marquee team, unproven.
I mean, as you would. As much as I have conflicted feelings about the whole thing, I also can't argue that whenever Guillaume is arguably the best male ice dance partner ever.
Yeah.
I get why they're throwing it all at him.
And if there's something that we noted a lot over the years with Lolo and Nick when they were skating together, while Nikolai Sorensen was a very strong partner, he was never as good as her.
No, Laurence was definitely always the superior skater.
Yeah. So the curiosity that we had was, if you take a skater who has always been the better, stronger partner, while they were doing very well,
oh yeah,
we're always just a little held back to a degree. And then you pair her with the reigning Olympic gold medalist, who is, like you said, arguably the best men's partner in ice dance kind of ever. What will happen? And this is our first look at what happens. And
it's about what you'd think would happen in that it's pretty good.
They're kind of astonishingly good. The striking thing in seeing them here, so, right off the top, they win the Masters event over Lopareva and Brissaud, who have been the top French team over the last couple of years, and also Demougeot and LeMercier, and we will talk about them further as we get into this. But Fournier-Beaudry and Cizeron skated like a team that had been together for years.
Yeah, it was a very immediate response to watching them. Their rhythm dance, which was to Depeche Mode and had a voguing theme, which I admit definitely felt a little bit samey to Guillaume and Gabby's program, their whacking program. Even though voguing and whacking are two very different dance styles, there is like an overarching, there's a lot of arms happening on the ice, and the way it's handled and the choreography is similar. I feel like that's fair to say.
Oh yeah, the voguing elements really only hit like twice in that rhythm dance, but when they happen, they look very, very reminiscent of that extraordinary whacking program that Gabby and Guillaume did.
Which is my favorite rhythm dance of all time.
Yeah,
so
it's extraordinary.
Yeah, a little sensitive to it.
Yeah, there is an uncomfortable moment of feeling like, oh, you're kind of returning to the well, but as a different team. And I think that we'll get a lot of side-eye from fans who already feel uncomfortable with this. It's executed fantastically.
Oh, it's executed brilliantly, and there's a lot that's different about it. So while there's a lot of those feelings of, okay, you could have done something wildly different, but you didn't, it does still stand on its own as an excellent rhythm dance. I will give it credit for that. Their free dance is a masterpiece. Like, I hate saying that word, but it was really good.
It's mesmerizing. It's a program that we're seeing for the very first time from a team we're seeing for the very first time. and it was absolutely breathtaking. It's one of those moments where if you just separate the story from the skaters,
yes,
if you just take away all of that context and all of whatever bias you might bring into it as you perceive them and just watch that skate, that is an Olympic level skate. It is extraordinary. It's beautifully choreographed. The music is so interesting.
It's hypnotic.
It is. It really is hypnotic. The way that it starts kind of sparse and atmospheric and then builds over time. And as it goes through basically 3 acts and just delivers this fully formed story on the ice. And I use the word mesmerized, but that's what I felt like with it. I was so taken in by it. I expected them to be really good. I don't know that I was prepared for it to look like that.
It was one of those moments of having to just purely appreciate them both leaning into the best strength they have. I mean that both in the literal sense of Guillaume's thighs, because my God, that man, he can do anything and he's crazy strong. But it was just the control, the complete body control that both of them have and the way they so organically work together. It was really impressive, I guess is the word I'm going to use for today. I had very conflicted feelings about it. They scored astronomically because this was not nationals, but a national competition. Only French competitors here.
It was domestic. And so domestic competitions, you can always take with a certain grain of salt when it comes to scores, particularly when you've got a federation that is going to be very keen to push this team to the forefront.
That's exactly what I was thinking upon seeing their total score of 219.07, which is humongous. I basically was like, this was the French Federation being like, okay, we have given them our very definitive, these are our best, take this, and plumped up those numbers huge to make sure that them going into their first competition, which I believe it's either Lombardia or Nebelhorn, I cannot remember off the top of my head, but it's very soon. It gives them that nice drift into that with a large number so that international judges are very clear in what the French Federation is sending.
When that program finished and I could breathe again, I think the very first thing one of us said, maybe we said at the same time,
Who was you?
Was, oh, everybody else should be nervous.
Yeah.
Because
they got to bring everything.
Everything. Because that free dance is so spectacular. It's full of such elegant moves, thoughtful choices, and they just look like two people who've been skating together forever. Like they fit together so well.
Yeah.
It's extraordinary how much those two locked together into something that felt correct. And there were so many lift choices that weren't as like big and over the top as what you'll see some other teams do to achieve like these really striking poses or these big moments. And instead, they used things that just created interesting shapes and moved across the ice differently than anybody else. And several times things that I don't know that I've seen before. And not that they were like necessarily super inventive. It was just like two people who could wrap themselves around each other and move as one. And you just don't expect a new team to do that or look like that. And while ice dance's scoring and placements tend to be such a hierarchy where you can kind of expect certain people to slot into certain places unless really crazy things happen, this is the true spoiler team that is likely to hop way up in the rankings immediately just because of undeniable quality.
I really am curious to see. One, like you had mentioned earlier, where we watched them on essentially home soil against two other French teams who are very good, but not at their level. And it was an interesting contrast to see that stark of a divide. I mean, they beat Lopareva and Brissaud, who are an excellent team who made big moves last year, especially Europeans, but they beat them by 20 points. I think that's excessive, but
26 points.
Okay, 26 points.
Yeah, 26 points in ice dance. I mean, that's
insanity.
Yeah.
And I do not think that the divide between those two teams is that vast.
But it is worth noting that Lopareva and Brissaud's programs didn't look as complete.
No.
And they definitely had a few little issues.
Yes.
And to take a look at Lopareva and Brissaud. So like you said, Fournier-Beaudry and Cizeron had a 219.07. Huge,
Massive.
Crazy score. Lopareva and Brissaud had a 193.68. That's a very respectable composite score here. Their rhythm dance to Blue and Around the World, I thought it was good. It feels a little like last year's rhythm dance. There's certain movements, particularly like right at the end, some of the end poses and stuff that feel very similar to that. And I love that Rasputin program from last season, but I feel like there's a little too many echoes of it in this one.
I didn't want it to be that way, but yes, that's exactly how I felt. Because I really like this team. So I was excited to see what they were going to do with the 90s thematic. And I think Blue and Around the World are fun song choices for them that do feel appropriate. But I agree. The choreography did feel like I was watching some, like a little rinse and repeat of what I've seen from them before.
I didn't really care for the outfits either.
It didn't seem to fit.
Yeah.
But maybe that'll change as, the season progresses.
Yeah.
But the free dance I thought was, well, like you said, it was not fully baked yet. I did think it was excellent.
Oh,
like a really lovely piece from Bjork that they skated to. And that feels like an evolution. That was where I want to see this team go. And it was extremely intricate and difficult. So I think that going back to looking at the difficulty of what Lopareva and Brissaud did compared to Laurence and Guy, it's hard for me to, because of, frankly, the feed that we were watching, which was difficult to watch.
Yeah.
Like it was pretty rough.
Yeah.
It left me kind of unaware of what is it about just beyond the aesthetic, like wow factor of what Laurence and Guy were doing. How are they one-to-one in each of the elements? Like I can look at Twizzles and mostly figure that out, but I am not an ice dance expert. So how difficult was Laurence and Guy's program? Instead, how will it compare to like a Chalk and Bates and a Piper and Paul in terms of the difficulty? I don't know that yet.
In watching that free dance from Lopareva and Brissaud, I think that they're doing things that to me look harder in several places as far as the technicality of the lifts and some of the things that it requires to make those things happen. And yeah, there were definitely some places in that free dance that had a little open space or you could see need to be tightened up. It's still a work in progress. I feel like when you're watching Lolo and Guy, you're seeing programs they've been doing since February. I feel like they've been working on those for many months more than all the teams who finished off at Worlds and then did some show skating and then started working on new programs. So I think that there's a likelihood that they've just had more time to get under the skin of these programs as well. But I do think Lopareva and Brissaud is going to get really, really strong. And like you mentioned, like the music in that, I think is a really excellent choice for them. It feels cinematic and it builds in a really beautiful way. And I think it lets them do something that's a little less kitschy than they sometimes lean into. They're a very quirky team, and I like that about them. But I think especially in Olympic year, they're not going safe with that free dance by any means. It is a unique piece, but it also steers away from some of the things that I think leaves certain audiences cold with them sometimes. So, but I do think that rhythm dance is going to have to come a little further in order to help them out. I will say, though, one of the things I've worried about with the return of Lolo and Guy, or the debut of Lolo and Guy, is how it was going to shove Demougeot and LeMercier into a third place spot. And that's precisely what happened here. But they were not very far behind Lopareva and Brissaud.
That's the thing. It's like they're only behind them by 3.3 points. That's nothing. Whenever you look at the distance that I feel like Lopareva and Brissaud made, especially at Europeans last year, they were on the podium.
Yeah.
So they should be farther ahead than this. They did have problems, particularly the Twizzles. Jeffrey, I saw, had, I think in the rhythm dance, wasn't perfect. Lopareva had some issues in the free, but I did not enjoy, I'm just being honest, the rhythm dance from Demougeot and LeMercier. I thought it was not particularly 90s. It was a bad version of No Scrubs.
It took 90s music and remixed it into something that felt more contemporary. And that's not what I want to hear in these programs. If you're going to take something, and again, we didn't really hit it very much, but like Lolo and Guy's rhythm dance was to Depeche Mode. I love Depeche Mode. I have a particular personal connection to Enjoy the Silence. So somebody using that as sort of an immediate injection into my own past and nostalgia. It used that music really well. And yeah, Demougeot and LeMercier's rhythm dance, nothing about the choreography or the look or the musical choice says 90s. And so
no, it looks like someone that didn't understand the 90s, which makes sense because they were not born.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair. And I think that's the problem too, as somebody who like came of age in the 90s. It's difficult to watch a bunch of people who didn't exist yet try to interpret that era. But yeah, it definitely was missing something and I didn't like it very much. However, their free dance is a completely different story.
Agreed.
I think that what they accomplished there hits what Demougeot and LeMercier do really well, which is a very theatrical, more modern dance oriented kind of thing. I mean, we know that they are part of a ice theater group that they perform as. And I think that when you see them do pieces like this, that influence comes out a lot more. And the way that they interpret the music in that one, I was so much happier with.
Oh, completely agree. I think that their free dance was the epitome of where I think they can go as a team. And they are younger. They are, like you just mentioned, the hierarchy of ice dance. They are definitely like the next in line. And them losing their Olympic spot, which unless catastrophe strikes, they're going to, because France only has 2. And Lolo and Guy are going to take one. It's going to happen.
That's like without something extraordinary happening, that is a given. That is what the French Federation wants.
Right. But while it seems like a foregone conclusion that Lopareva and Brissaud would be the second, with that score being as close as it is, I feel like they have to be a little conscious of, is it as safe as it should be at this point for them? Because Demougeot and LeMercier's free dance is super strong. And if Lopareva and Brissaud aren't continuing to make the progress like they were making last season, it could be tighter for that second slot than we think.
I do think that Lopareva and Brissaud offer a stronger bit of like counter programming to Fournier-Beaudry and Cizeron as far as giving you a stronger differentiation stylistically between teams. And I think there's something to be said for that.
And they do have a European medal. That will help them.
That helps a lot. Yeah, I think that Demougeot and LeMercier are a very middle of the pack team most of the time. Mm-hmm. One that I have enjoyed greatly over the last couple of years. I think last year they didn't quite come up as much as I was expecting after the programs that they had 2 seasons ago, because those stood out to me a little bit more. But I think that what they bring to the ice is very different and very interesting. And I'm really looking forward to seeing more of that free dance because I did like it a lot.
Well, let's also talk about the men's competition at the French Masters, because we saw what appears to be a fully formed Kevin Aymoz ready to go, because he looked fantastic in his first outing. Tired, not conditioned as well as he'd like to be, I'm sure, but he scored a combined 274.06. His short program to a Lady Gaga medley was phenomenal.
Oh, yes. So good. I loved that program on him.
It's fantastic. And he brought back Bolero and looked focused. More than anything, that is the word that I took away from that free skate, was focus.
You know, you mentioned that the conditioning isn't there yet, and you can definitely tell he was gassing out on both those programs towards the end. You know, he definitely needs some more run-throughs, but the Lady Gaga short program, it fits him like a glove. To use the cliche, I mean, it is
pure Kevin.
It is pure Kevin. It's so exactly tailored to what he does best, how he delivers excitement and personality and charisma on the ice with terrific looking jumps and big exciting moments. It's almost no notes. It was so good. Again, you could tell he was getting tired right at the end of it, but he really delivered strongly on that. I was hoping to see Bolero evolve a little bit more than it has. And I understand why he came back to this program and why he would want the redemption of it. And we talked about this in an earlier episode. It was a program that was so strong at the beginning of the 2023-24 season. And then he just really fell apart at the end of that season and had so many problems. And so wanting to bring back a program that you know can really compete makes a ton of sense. I was just hoping to see it realign with this version, this 2025 version of Kevin a little bit more, thinking about how well he did last year, just some of the extraordinary work that he was doing then. So I'm not disappointed in anything. I think that it was still really strong, even though you could tell that he didn't have all of the energy he needed for the very end of it. I was just hoping for it to become something a little different, but still very, very good.
I think it will. Like, I doubt very seriously that this is its final form.
Like it's a Pokemon that has to go through two more evolutions. Yeah.
I think so. I wonder if he's going to switch costumes.
I hope so.
Yeah. So we'll see.
Yeah. I just want it to not feel like it's just a rehash of that season that's just going for its own redemptive arc. I want it to have a new life. And I think that the styling and just some of those choices, I think just could be updated.
The rest of the men's competition was marked by a lot of skaters we've heard of who are not necessarily at the forefront competitors, like Francois Pitot, who came in second and was behind Kevin by about 44 points.
Yeah.
But the other really big story here was the debut of Adam Xiaohemfa, who came in third with a 219.56. And we can't tell you anything about it because his programs were not streamed at his own request, because he did not want to debut them here, is really the impression I got.
It seemed like Adam was pretty clearly not satisfied with the condition that these programs are in, and that, he didn't really want people seeing them before they were great. And clearly with a 219.56, they did not go very well, because that's an extremely low score, particularly for Adam, who is,
capable of over 300.
Right. Is one of the best skaters in the business. It is kind of fascinating that he said to the Federation, I don't want you to stream these. And they said, cool, man, no problem. And they just blacked it out on the feed. I have never heard of anybody doing that before.
Me neither.
Things getting blocked out because of like copyright reasons or whatever.
Absolutely.
That's super
for music.
common.
Yeah.
And I have mixed feelings about it, because on one level, that's such a very human choice to say, yeah, okay, man, like one of our best guys isn't ready for this to kind of be put out there, so we're just not going to stream it. Like, that's extremely considerate.
And very respectful.
But at the same time, in a televised sport, that's a really weird choice. And I don't know how to feel about it.
Yeah, I mean, to a certain degree, I understand Adam requesting it, like saying, hey, I know that this is not where I want to be yet. And in an Olympic season, every program is taken into consideration by international judges. Everything is so momentum based. And if he felt like going in, he was not peak, that could be not necessarily great for him long term. However, that same thing could be said of any of the skaters there. So yeah, I don't know how to feel about it either. I think it's interesting is where I'm going to leave it, because I love Adam. I have a massive amount of respect for him, but this one was strange.
I'll be very curious to see these actual programs when they're fully baked and he's
well, we don't have much longer of a wait. He's at Lombardia.
Right. Yeah. So hopefully he'll get those tightened up ahead of that. But it is a very, very strange set of choices to make that happen. And it's a shame we didn't get to see them. But from his post interviews, he said that he thought this was his worst competition in a long time. So it clearly didn't go very well and it wasn't ready to go. So, maybe it's better for all of us that we didn't get a look at it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The rest of the competition isn't very surprising. Over in the women, Laurence Schild took the top spot, just edging out Leah Serna. And of the French women, they're really the two most notable, and they're kind of always kind of vying for that top spot. Laurence has been the more consistent skater of the two of them over the last few seasons, but both of them are pretty middle of the pack when it comes to the international women's competition.
Yeah, and in the pairs, Kovalev and Kovalev, as you would expect, there's other teams, but
I think there's like three teams total in this competition. Yeah.
But to be honest, if they did not take this, it would be really disappointing. So thankfully they did.
Yeah. I mean, Kovalev and Kovalev are the team that I feel like are just hanging on to handle that Olympic spot, because
the French team needs them.
Yeah, the French team needs them, and they just don't have anybody else that's strong in the federation. I feel like they're a team that have kind of gone over the hill of their journey as far as growth and ability. And I think that they are just hanging on for this Olympic cycle. So I'm hoping that they can do that safely without injury and stuff, because that's definitely marred them in the past. I like Kovalev and Kovalev a lot, but they are a team that feels like they're diminishing over time.
For sure. Well, we're going to now move into talking about the juniors.
Hard left,
which we rarely do, but it feels very worthwhile right now, not only because there's particular news worth talking about, But also, remember, we're in an Olympic cycle. Next season, we're going to start hearing these names a lot more. So as we evolve into finishing this quadrennial and moving into the next, it's probably a good idea to start sprinkling in some junior.
Well, particularly after some of the performances that we saw out of the Junior Grand Prix over this last week or so, there are some new names to watch in there.
Yeah. And so I think the first thing I do want to mention is
controversy.
A little bit. There was a brand new to the Junior Grand Prix team from China in the Paris competition, Go and Zhang, and they performed the first quad twist that we have seen in competitive skating since the 2022 Olympics when Sui and Han did one. The controversial part is that it was called a triple twist, and I am assuming it was not contested quick enough by the Chinese team, or they just basically didn't notice that it had not been called a quad twist. And so if you looked at the protocols, it says triple twist. However, if you watch, it is definitely a quad twist.
It's clear as day a quad twist. It's beautiful.
It's huge.
I think that it's still a level 1. It didn't have all of the features it needed to get a higher level on it, but it is obviously a quad twist. And the judges somehow missed that in real time and in review. And like you said, it seems like nobody caught that issue until afterwards. So it wasn't contested. So it's not a ratified quad twist. And I had a lot of people up in arms because it has not been changed, because I think by the rules, you cannot change it after a certain amount of time. I think the rules are kind of exist in a way that's made it so that you can't have a podium ceremony and then have somebody afterwards contest it and then try to change the results after the fact.
However, this would not have changed the results.
It would not have. And I think that that's where, when people refer to it as a controversy, I think that that's kind of a strong word for what's happened here. Yes, that quad twist was really cool and huge, and their first thrown triple was extraordinary.
This team has big throws.
They have big throws.
Big throws.
We've talked plenty about Sui and Han and their enormous throws in the past, and that we were pretty excited to see those again if they could still do them. But I was really struck by the height and distance they got out of those throws, and how much that Zheng didn't have to reach across his entire body the way that Han always had to do with Sui in order to rocket her so far. There was just power in those throws and grace from Go in the air. Their second throw didn't land. She did fall on it. And there was a lot in the rest of the program that wasn't very refined. Their lifts don't look that great yet. There's some of their choreographic elements that leave something to be desired.
It's really their singles elements. I think their jumps, they fell on, it was just messy otherwise.
Yeah, he fell on one of their side-by-sides. She fell on one of the throws. There were problems in that program.
But this is still a really impressive young team.
Yes, a great debut on the Grand Prix and a very, very exciting team. But like you were saying, when the scores came down, even if they had been correctly scored for that quad twist, it would not have changed the standings. They would have still been solidly in second place here. So I think that while it's unfortunate that happened, and that's definitely something that the judges need to get a little bit of talking to about doing that correctly, at the same time, I don't think it's something to be extraordinarily upset about, because it's not like they didn't win because they didn't get scored right on that.
No, like you said, Canada's Ava Kemp and Kemp and Elizarov were really strong in the free skate especially, and definitively won this competition for sure. But I mostly just look at that in the sense of, like you said, the judges need to be on top of their stuff more.
Yeah.
Whenever even Mark and Chris, the commentators, are going back and counting and being like 1, 2, 3, 4, this is a quad twist.
Yeah, in super slow-mo, they're seeing it, and spotting it as the commentators. Yeah.
And in case anyone is still arguing, I went to the ISU's website where they posted their post-competition article and summary, and they refer to it as a rare quad twist. Even the ISU is saying it.
When we were watching it live, the only concern I had with it is that I thought that maybe it was more like 3 3/4 of a twist. I think that she came down slightly at an angle into the catch, and I think that was reflected in the levels for it. But it is still, she goes around 4 times. So yeah, We're spending a lot of time on them, though, without really discussing the winners here. And I don't want to diminish what we saw from Canada's Ava Kemp and Jonathan Elizarov, because that team has shown such remarkable growth since last season. I remember them distinctly last year being a team that I saw a lot of promise in. Particularly, I think that Jonathan looked very strong then and still does here. But I think Ava has come a long way over the course of the last season and summer. And I was way more impressed with them here. I would not have expected them to have been a top of the podium team at the Grand Prix, really, based on what I was seeing last season.
I don't know. I feel like they've been successful enough where I was expecting them to continue to be successful. But I do agree that, like, just from their presentation and musicality and connection with the music is way better this season than it was last season.
And the choreography on that free skate, it really showcases what the two of them do very, very well. You get a little bit more theatricality out of Ava. And again, it uses Jonathan's abilities very, very well. So while they don't have like the explosiveness of a quad twist, and some of those technical elements maybe looked a little simpler by way of comparison to what we were seeing out of the Chinese team, it was all so much more elegantly delivered. And in watching that, it was like, oh, okay, this is very obviously a better performance, a more complete performance, and deserves to win this. So it was one of those moments, and we'll see this kind of with the women as well, where you can have those kind of big flashy jumps or throws or technical elements, but the more complete skater is the one who should be kind of coming out on top here. And that's what happened with this team. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great.
They were really impressive. Someone else who impressed me this week a lot was Minkyu Seo from Korea. At the Grand Prix Ankara that we've been talking about, he took the competition with a personal best of 2:43.27, and he has evolved a lot in his musicality as well. He is a former world junior champion from 2024. He has been continuously one of the top men in juniors, but I really feel like this was a specific step forward for him as more of a complete skater.
His free skate there is gorgeous.
It's real nice.
I was so impressed with it. All of the jumps were super clean. He doesn't have any quads yet, and that we'll talk a little bit more about how that kind of puts him in placements against probably his top rival in the men's division. But the refinement in the skating, his musicality has leveled up significantly. The choreographic choices really suited him very, very well. He was skating to Exogenesis. It's the Muse Warhorse that skaters just absolutely love, but it worked really well on him. And I think that it gave a whole extra breadth of artistic expression in his skating that's been there all along. But I think that you're just seeing it come to the forefront. It was an extremely beautiful program.
He did great. And yeah, his rival, Ryo Nakata, won his Grand Prix debut this season as well last week and got a personal best in his short program. So it's interesting that both of them have had personal bests in their first Grand Prix performances this season. And their scores, like Ryo got a 2:46.94. So they're really inches apart. Like they are so right in the same zone to, like, I hate the word rivalry sometimes. However, I feel like this is a good one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they are both world junior champions.
Yeah.
So that really does put them kind of neck and neck. But this is that case of like two extremely different types of skaters.
Exactly.
Because Ryo, it has stronger technicality. He has quads, and he's got this sort of explosive like masculinity to his skating. Like there's a lot of energy and intensity, and he's very theatrical in certain ways, or very cinematic. And Minkyu's skating is softer, a little bit more elegant, a little smoother. And I think that what you kind of note there is that their scores between these two different programs are only separated by 3 points. But like what we saw from Minkyu was just absolutely excellent execution of that program, but without higher technical value, it might be close to the ceiling for what he can get scores wise there.
Whereas Ryo, in his Grand Prix debut this season, popped his triple axel. He had several minor issues. It was wonderful watching Minkyu have just green across the board on all of his score boxes. Whereas Ryo did not have that. And you know that he had sort of held back on some of the content he can deliver. So you're seeing, the clean elegance versus that aggressive technicality. So I'm really excited to see how this kind of continues on. I know Minkyu said he is working on a quad sal, so I think that this is going to make the men's competition and juniors really, really interesting this season.
Yeah, and again, when we talk about those next quadrennial skaters, I feel like those two guys are right at the forefront of
Those are names to absolutely hold on to.
Oh, but if we want to talk about a name to hold on to, one that I had not heard before, she made her Junior Grand Prix debut at Ankara and won it, was Japan's Mayuko Oka, because, oh, wow.
She's lovely, unique, different, special. Like, these are words we hear commentators use all the time. And this particular case, it totally tracks. It makes sense and it is accurate. Some of the spins she did were just so specific, from her opening poses to some movements with her fingertips, across the ice. This is someone who already at 15 has so much connection with the music and has already developed an identity.
Yeah.
She has room to grow.
Sure,
Her extension is nice, but needs help. She doesn't stretch as much as you might want to see. But these are nitpicks at this point. She, at 15, is phenomenal.
The thing that I kept being struck by, and you mentioned that there is identity. We talk a lot about how there are teams that have a very specific artistic identity, teams or individual skaters that have this specific identities on the ice, and then other people where they look a little bit more generic. They might jump really well, or they might have good skating skills, but there just isn't a thing there. With Mayuko Oka, it's just already there. I mean, she just shows up on the ice, and from the very first movements, there is that sense of oh my gosh, this is already an almost fully formed competitor out of nowhere. She just felt very confident. She was very calm through them. She's going into her first Junior Grand Prix, and she just felt like a seasoned veteran. You watched her in the Kiss and Cry, and she just looked like somebody who was already just completely comfortable in her skin. And both of the programs here were lovely. That free skate was just amazing. And there's still plenty of room for growth in them. But everything from the styling, she has this peacock outfit, which could have been way over the top, but does work in the short program and really matches her movements and just really striking positions and poses, where she'll go from very fluid movement into very popping, strong. I'm doing them in the room and you can't see me. She's peacocking, right. But it struck me just how strong the choreography was and how she was interpreting it so well, and it was playing to her strengths. And then in the free skate, she's wearing an outfit that just has beautiful color, but it's kind of it's a little understated. There's instead of being super flowy, it has a little bit more room in the cut in a way that I just thought looked really nice. I thought there was just something a little different.
Moved well.
Yeah. And in general, the thing that I kept thinking with her is that, and I remember one of the commentators saying it too, is that in a field full of Japanese women who are all so good, but they're all so distinct, and yet here comes this new younger skater who is also wildly distinct from the rest of them in her interpretive voice and in the choices that they make in her spins and just in her movements. There's several edge changes that she did that just felt very different from anybody else in this competition. And I think when you kind of make a comparison with her and the rest of the podium at this event, you just see some very strikingly different skaters. And I will gush a bit in a minute about UJ Kim's Lord of the Rings free skate, because I really, really loved that. But yeah, Mayuko Oka, wow.
And I mean, it's worth noting that she was second in both the short and the free skate behind two different skaters. And that's how she ended up winning the whole thing, because Sophie Jolene von Felton from the US took the short program, did a triple axel, triple toe in it.
That was crazy. Wow.
Yeah, it was huge.
Nobody does a triple axel, triple toe in women.
No woman,
that is, I mean, Sophie Jolene von Felton has definitely established herself as the jumper in the junior women's, but that combo is, whoa.
It's lovely. And also, you can tell that her short program is very meaningful to her because it is a tribute to fellow competitors that were lost on the plane earlier this season after U.S. Nationals. So it is powerful. And you can tell that she feels it. Yeah. Very much.
What's so striking about that program is that the early part of it is so focused on the jumps and feels a lot more like what we're kind of used to seeing from Sophie, which is a little thin in the choreography, a little stiff it doesn't bend her knees quite enough. Like she needs a little bit more.
She needs to work on that, yeah.
Yeah, there's some fluidity that could enter into her movements and her positions. But once she gets to the footwork sequence, the attack changes. The music changes with it, but there is a passion that comes in and you see the change in her face. You see that emotional component hit. And from there on out, the rest of that program, she is going 100 miles an hour with a ton of power.
Yes. So following that fantastic short program from Sophie, her free skate did not go as well.
This is the clear case of somebody who is in the front of the pack, but is very focused on those big Ultra C elements. I mean, she had a triple axel, she had a quad, and neither of them landed. And
she had 2 triple axles, technically.
Oh, that's right. 2 triple axels and a quad. So she was throwing those big value jumps, and that's probably a part of why she still landed on the podium. But she sat a couple of them down and had some other things in that program. I mean, basically that entire free skate looked really rough. Watching her in the kiss and cry afterwards, I think she thought she was going to fall off the podium. And
definitely.
When she saw that she had still gotten the bronze, she was really happy, which was nice to see that, like, you know, that she was still able to find that joy after being in the lead and having it fall apart as much as it did. But it's always that trade-off of that high risk reward of doing those Ultra Cs, but them not coming together. And I think that she also had to follow 2 extremely strong performances. We already talked about Mayuka Oka, but also from Korea's Yoo-Jae Kim.
Yeah, Yoo-Jae Kim was remarkable. This is the best I've ever seen her skate. Her free skate is a Lord of the Rings medley. She does it beautifully. Yoo-Jae and her sister Yusong, the twins, I still can't tell apart yet. I'll get there. But they are identical, so it's not totally my fault. But both of them have continued to evolve and impress so much. But Yoo-Jae here really felt like she was stepping forward in a big way. I still can see a lot of those kind of juniorish movements in her skating. I want desperately for her to bend her knees a little bit more, but that'll come. That's all in time. She is a brilliant skater, and it was lovely to see a great, clean skate from her, and for her to win the free skate here was really wonderful.
We've talked about with lots of other skaters over the years that your own physicality and like the shape of your body will affect how some of your lines look sometimes. And so when you have people who are a little bit more lithe or lanky, those shapes, whether it's full extensions or knee bends, can become a little bit more obvious. And I think Yoo-Jae suffers a bit from that, where it's like just her own physicality can make some of those weaknesses in those shapes a little bit more visible than they might be on other skaters. But at the same time, I think I've said elegance a lot through this episode, but that Lord of the Rings free skate really does have a ton of beautifully delivered elements and just glide on the ice and a little bit more ice coverage. If there was something that I saw out of Mayuka Oka that I think could use some work, is that she's not hitting the corners as well. She was a little bit more kind of in the oval rather than in the entire rink. And we saw, like, from Sophie Jolien van Felton, a lot more ice coverage and getting into the corners. And
she's
I think
so fast.
So fast. And I think Yoo-Jae did a better job of that as well. And she won the free skate here, and she should have, because it was
for sure
such a beautiful program. And I felt like the commentators were kind of swooning a bit, because they both, you know, they've been watching her for years and they had really seen like this is such a level up for her, and she's done so well. And I think the previous week, her sister had landed kind of a disappointing 5th at her first Junior Grand Prix event. So for Yoo-Jae to come in here and really deliver under pressure and then, you know, rise up to that second level here, super strong. Again, I mean, I mentioned earlier, I mean, I have a deep connection to the Lord of the Rings music, and this particular cut was different from what I've seen other people skate to before. And so it did also punch me right in the nostalgia. But I think that Yoo-Jae really delivered it well. And, you know, when we just talk about like the future going past this Olympics, we're going to see a lot of people retire. We're going to see a lot of regime change happen after the end of this next season. And looking at some of these young women who still have a couple of years before they're going to get into those senior ranks, but if they continue to evolve the way we're seeing here, I think we have a lot to be excited about.
Very much so. The last thing I want to mention is actually about last week's Junior Grand Prix in Riga, and that's that Naomi Williams and Lachlan Lewer from the U.S., who are personal faves of ours,
They're so adorable.
They're wonderful, the sweetest. And they got their first Grand Prix medal, a bronze at the Grand Prix of Riga.
Yeah, which is so terrific. That
Very
team, cool. I think, really had some struggles in the last year or so because Naomi had a nagging injury that was taking a long time for them to get some of their, I think it was like one of her thrown triples had been the culprit of it. And now they're able to land it again. They have appeared in seniors a little bit as well.
We're going to see them next week.
Yeah. They're going to be kind of splitting time over the course of this season, but them, getting on a podium here is super awesome. They just seem like two of the absolute sweetest human beings on the planet.
I know. They're just so cute.
Their energy together is just so fun.
They're excited to be there. They're the most excited to be anywhere.
Yes, they are total hype men for like everybody else around them as well. And if you are of the Instagram persuasion and you follow skating people and you don't follow the two of them, I suggest you do so because they are just so darling. They are
delightful.
so fun. Yeah.
Well, I want to spend the last section of our episode talking about the upcoming competitions because this is probably our last week of what you would consider the preseason. This is now becoming the real very, very quickly. We're moving into September, and on September 2nd and 3rd, Tuesday.
In the middle of the week.
Yeah, Tuesday and Wednesday. John Nicks always happens then, is the John Nicks Pairs Challenge in New York. And we're going to get our first look at Deanna Stellato-Dudek and Maxime Deschamps, which I'm very excited about.
Yes, I am hoping for fireworks from them.
Me too.
I think last season, as much as I like those programs, after they had been so successful the season before, last season was a little bit of a disappointment. And going into this Olympics, particularly because, Deanna does have her Canadian citizenship now, so they're ready to go. I want to see them full steam ahead doing some pretty exciting stuff. But then we just get basically every American team.
Other than Ellie Cam and Danny O'Shea and Plazas and Fernandez. We're not getting Ellie and Danny because of Danny's, I'm guessing, because of his continuing recovery from his injury.
His foot injury, yeah. Because he broke his foot at the end of last season, yeah.
But they're still, like, from what I can see on social media, they're doing great. His recovery's going well. It just looks like they weren't quite ready for competition yet. And we're not seeing the return of Plazas and Fernandez because they're going to be at the Kinoshita Cup in Japan like a few days later. So it makes sense that they're not going to be there.
Yeah. But it will be great to see them again because they have been out of injury because Max had been hurt for quite a while too. So it's been a while since we've seen them.
Yeah. But other than that, it's essential U.S. nationals because we're getting Alyssa Efimova and Misha Mitrofanov, our reigning national champions. We're getting Audrey Shin and Balazs Naj, Emily Chan and Spencer Howe. We're getting Flores and Wang, McBeath and Parkman. Again, Naomi Williams and Lachlan Lewer. And we're getting our first look at the new team of Chelsea Liu and Ryan Bedard.
I'm so interested to see what Liu and Bedard look like.
I think that they were at a smaller regional competition maybe this week, but I haven't seen anything about it. I don't know how they did. So yeah, in my brain, and just because I'm actually going to watch this, I hope, as long as it's streamed somewhere. Yeah, I'm really curious to see how these two look together. It is a pairing I would not have seen coming, so I'm very curious.
Yeah.
But I also want to see the progress of Shin and Naj. I heard they had a great champs camp, so very curious there.
Well, and we know that the U.S. Fed is sending Audrey Shin and Balazs Naj to the September qualifying event for the Olympics to try to lock in another space. So that's a big vote of confidence.
And I also think that that's some pressure here for them to perform really well because there's still like a long list of substitutes that if they don't perform well here, it's still early enough that someone else could get tagged in.
Yeah, so this is a pretty important competition for sure.
So we'll see what happens there. But as I mentioned just a little bit ago, the Kinoshita Cup, that is a Challenger Series event that's happening September 5th through the 7th. We're going to get our first look at Junwon Cha.
Yeah.
I was waiting for you to say God's favorite because that's what you always say.
I always say God's favorite. Yeah. God's favorite, Junwon Cha. I just remember somebody posting that on Twitter back in the day and it's never left my head. Yes, super excited for Junwon Cha's debut here. His short program is To Rain in Your Black Eyes. That's become kind of a warhorse. It's great music. It's a little bit of a safe choice, but I get it. It fits his drama and what he does here. It does sound like he is upping his technical ante with both of these programs because he's got 2 quads along with the triple axel planned for that short program. So looking for bigger fireworks there.
Yeah, having seen his expected content, like his long is The Show Must Go On. It looks like it's Moulin Rouge and Queen. So we'll see how that mix breaks down. But he has planned 2 quad salls, 1 in combination this time, his quad toe, and then 4 triples, including his axel in combination. So this feels like I don't want to be discounted for a medal push. This feels like an Olympic medal hunt.
Yeah.
And I am so excited for it.
Junwon is one of those guys that should be considered one of the top men in the world. He's just been kind of squeezed out over the last couple of seasons. Yeah, I think upping the technical will be important here. He has, other than Yuma, probably the best quad sal in the business.
God. To be honest, I think his is actually my favorite just because of how gorgeous it looks. Like the way he does it, there is something so special about it. He also has the best Ina Bauer.
I was going to say he has the world's best Ina Bauer.
It's
for
so
sure.
good.
I mean, at least since the retirement of Yellem Kim. But yes, his Ina Bauer is breathtaking. So yeah, I mean, the layouts for these, I'm going to be really curious to see where they land in the programs and how it pushes him. He is one of the world's best artistic skaters.
Easily.
But he's also one of the world's worst unaesthetic fallers. So
he is an ugly faller.
Yeah.
He is a beautiful man who is an ugly, ugly faller.
Yeah. So let's hope for no pops, no flops.
Yes. But this competition overall is going to be interesting for men's and women's in particular, because other than Junwon, here we're going to see Tatsuya Saboi, Sora Yamamoto, Kao Miura, Kazuki Tomono, and Jimmy Ma. So I think Jun and Kao really should be 1-2 in either order, but you never know. Tatsuya had a good season overall last year. Soda deserves a nice comeback because he is a strong skater who did not have a great year.
Yeah, Soda seemed to kind of disappear last season, and I love Soda Yamamoto. I love him stylistically. He started the season strong last year and then just kind of vanished and just wasn't around very much. But I love his skating style. He's so fun.
That's how I feel about Kazuki. Kazuki Tomono is one of my absolute favorites and just hasn't run his way in a while. So I would love to see him do great. And obviously, as we mentioned in last week's episode, we love Jimmy Ma.
We love Jimmy Ma.
We are always here for the victory of Jimmy Ma.
Yeah.
But the women's event is the one I am really, really, really excited about. Because we have Kaori Sakamoto, we have Mona Chiba, Wakaba Higuchi, Hana Yoshida, Rinko Watanabe, Han Lee, and Brady Tennell.
That is stacked.
And it's not even to mention, I think Maddie Skizis is here too, and there's others. Like, it is a list. This is a big competition and a lot of debuts.
Well, like, just take out, I mean, Brady Tennell, who we saw at the Summer Sizzler and who looked amazing. Like,
she did.
What she performed at the Summer Sizzler is my favorite thing I've ever seen her do and has made me excited to see what she's going to do this season. Take Han Lee, who came back after suspension last year, ranked the highest of the Korean women at Worlds and really put on a great showing, and who is also a very artistically interesting skater overall. But just set them aside and just look at Sakamoto, Chiba, Higuchi, Yoshida, and Watanabe at this. Like, oh my God.
This is definitely a preview. This is essentially a preview of Japanese nationals outside of Rino Matsuike and Yuneoki and Rion Sumiyoshi. But this is still a really heavily
You left out Mai Mihara.
Oh my God, shame on me.
How dare you?
How dare I indeed. That is shameful. What I'm trying to say is these are all people who are fighting for 3 spots on that Olympic team. And your 3 favorites are amongst these.
Yeah.
So it'll be really interesting to kind of see how they rank against each other here.
But what I am most excited to see out of all of that is I want to see Rinka Watanabe land that triple axel and the quad sal.
God, I hope she does.
I want her to come out swinging so hard. I adore Rinka. She tends to drift towards the middle of the pack of the top Japanese women, which is kind of crazy that like their tier is so huge, you know. It's that, so when you're second tier, you're still
better than most everyone else. Yeah.
But I've always enjoyed Rinka stylistically, and knowing that she's going hard for those Ultra Cs, especially like as essentially the last season of her career, she's, you know, getting a quad sal. That's so ballsy. I love that for her. I love that for us. So that's the thing I think I'm most hyped about.
For sure.
Yeah.
In the pairs, it's really going to be Mira and Kihara versus Metzelkina and Barulava. Rematch there. I think that's going to be really exciting. Haven't seen either of them this season. So
hoping for better material from Metzelkina and Barulava. They're a terrific team that so often the choices for them are either so gitchy or so melodramatic. I want them to find that middle ground that suits them better.
But I want to see Riku and Ryu's new programs.
Oh, yeah.
I'm very excited about that. But we are also, as I mentioned earlier, going to see the return of Plazas and Fernandez.
Yeah.
I'm hoping for good things for them here.
Yes. A team that, again, when we talk about sort of middle of the pack skaters, I think that in the U.S. Fed that has a pretty dense pairs lineup now, Plaza and Fernandez have got some ground to make up after having been gone for a while. Yeah, I'll be really interested to see what they accomplish out in their first showing.
Same. The dance is a little thinner, but it is going to be interesting to see the debut of Zingas and Kolesnik.
The newly U.S. citizen Kolesnik.
Yeah, Vadim got his U.S. citizenship.
Yeah, congrats, Vadim. Welcome to the mess of the U.S.
Yes, we really like you, and hopefully you don't hate us.
Yeah.
But we're also going to see Nasset and Markelov and Fabrian Air. So I think it'll be a good competition, but I would hope that Zingas and Kolesnik come out kicking, because them being here and what they do this season is going to be really important competition to competition, because they are amongst like 3-ish teams probably that are all vying for that third spot on the podium that get to go to the Olympics. And now that he's a U.S. citizen, it can really happen.
Right.
So,
yeah, that opportunity that door opened wide for them here.
Yes.
But it is going to be a stiff competition. But of course, the second spot is what we would expect to be Carrera and Ponomarenko. But Christina Carrera does not have her citizenship. So that's all in question. There's a lot of that where like it's the same with Efimova and Mitrofanov, where Alyssa does not have citizenship. And we know that people are working on it, trying to make it happen. But we're in the time crunch to make something like that take place. And that is really outside of the control of the skaters. So all they can do is just keep trying to be the best that they can be and hope that somewhere somebody in the administration is willing to punch that button and make it happen for them. And that is a long shot a lot of
fingers and toes and anything else I can cross.
Yeah, even though Christina has been here forever, right?
I know.
I mean, I guess Vadim has been in the States now for like 9 years.
Yeah, so he has as well.
Yeah, he's been here for a long time, but Christina has been about the same. So I don't know why those things happen the way they do, but there's just so much red tape and political nonsense that gets wrapped up in those sort of things. And it is a fraught time to even talk about immigrating in the U.S. right now. So how that affects skaters and what they have going on, I just don't know. I
have no idea.
But very excited to see Zingas and Kolesnik here. Yeah.
Very, very much. And right after these two competitions we just talked about, we are only 2 weeks out from the Lombardia Trophy, which we mentioned last week has a ridiculous field, particularly in the men's division.
Lineup is going to be explosive.
It's going to be crazy.
So, yeah, get ready for that one.
But we are only 3 weeks from the Olympic qualifying event in Beijing, and that gives me a little bit of palpitations.
Yes. There's so much on the line at that one. Like, I don't think that, because, we weren't figure skating podcasters before this quadrennial.
We were not.
Started after the last Olympics. And I don't know that I'd ever paid attention to those qualifiers and things like that previously.
Because it used to be Lombardia Trophy, I believe.
Yeah. But I just don't think in general I was really aware of that stuff as much. And now, like, I just have that sense of like, oh my gosh, like this is so important and there's so much on the line, and a whole lot of skaters that I absolutely adore are going to be at this thing trying to make that dream happen. And there's very few spots. And I don't know who I'm going to be rooting for at that event. I don't know how to feel about it just yet. So
the only ones I am absolutely sure I'm going to be rooting for are Allison Reed and Salias Ambrlovicius, because they better get that spot.
Yes, they got so hosed at Worlds, and I absolutely love that team. And she got her citizenship this last year, so they are eligible.
I have no personal stake in this other than that I love them, and I'm like, I will be so heartbroken. So I can't imagine the stress it is on them.
Well, and they are such a gorgeous artistic storytelling team. All the ice dancers have to kind of excel at that level of storytelling, but Allison and Salias, they really do create little mini theatrical experiences on the ice, particularly in their free dances. And they're so, so good. So yeah, I am, oh my God, just like pulling for them big time at that one.
Very much.
Yeah. So our next episode, we should be talking about the John Nix Pairs Challenge and seeing how that all shakes up. And then I suppose actually probably also the Kinoshita Cup will have been finished by then. So we should be talking about that.
Both of them, yeah.
Yeah. So
it gets real next week.
Yeah. We are in the thick of it now. It's all happening. And I'm sure we will still be talking about some of the junior stuff as it goes along that will backseat to the senior stuff, but we will try to cover more of that this season as we're able. So look forward to all of that. And for Scoreography, I'm Adrian Buskey.
And I'm Wendy Buskey.
And we will talk to you next time.
Bye.